Ever wanted to prime minis, put red on their eyes, and call it a day? I got a perfect chapter of the Emperor's Angels for you then. The Black Templars are the non-Codex Astartes compliant bad boys of the Adeptus Astartes. They have a hate for everything that isn't a part of the Emperor's design and steal most people's hearts, including mine. Being an Imperial Fist successor chapter, they also don the iconic colors of black and white that are also never used for any other Space Marine chapters and aren't overused in any way possible. They also use the Iron Cross as their logo. This icon, plus the name of their characters like Sigismund, Grimaldus, and many others, have Germanic roots to their names, meaning that these guys are the closest to a German Space Marine chapters you can get. They are the most reminiscent of the Holy Roman Empire, though. I know it doesn't have German in the name, but modern-day Germany is where the heartland of the Holy Roman Empire was. Also, can you believe that they were deeply religious? The Black Templars theming goes hand in hand with the actual Templars in real life, who were supported by the Byzantine Church, that operated during the Dark Ages or Medieval Ages. And considering the Black Templars work with the Inquisition, which is the ruling part of the Imperial cult, you can see where they got their inspiration from. Yeah, I bet you didn't expect to be tricked into learning real-life history instead of game lore. Get tricked into watching edutainment, you nerd. During the Siege of Terra and the Horus Heresy, many champions of chaos sprung up from the Traitor Marines. This didn't sit right with Rogaldorn, Primarch of the Imperial Fists, so he decided to make the first champion of the Emperor, dubbing the first captain of the Imperial Fists, Sigismund, the Champion of the Emperor. Sigismund was given all the coolest and bedazzled weapons that the Imperial Fists had, including weapons and armors, which made him an absolutely goated unit that allowed him to fight against the champions of the Chaos Gods quite easily. He did a phenomenal job at it, by the way. Thank you for asking. During the Siege of Terra, he would banish 12 champions of chaos back into the warp. Sigismund was very emblematic of Rogaldorn's hate and fury against his enemies, with him hating Xenos and Chaos alike, even more than most Space Marines. In fact, Rogaldorn hated the idea of any Space Marines turning traitor so much when a Death Guard loyalist named Nathaniel Garrow came to report that everybody was killing each other. Rogaldorn was so pissed off that anybody would even think of saying that to him that he almost executed Nathaniel Garrow on the spot. But then Nathaniel Garrow said, "No, for real, I mean it," and he got away with it. He also became the first Grey Knight, but that's a story for another time. When the Horus Heresy came to an end and Robute Guilliman said that he needed all Space Marine legions to be divided into chapters, Rogaldorn wasn't very fond of that. Robute Guilliman then called him a traitor and blew up a battle barge full of Imperial Fists with the help from the Imperial Guard, and Rogaldorn didn't want another heresy to happen, so he complied. And one of the first second founding chapters of the Imperial Fists was the Black Templar, with its first chapter master being High Marshal Sigismund, the first Emperor's champion. Sigismund found a bunch of like-minded Space Marines who had his fury and zeal and set off on an adventure. The Black Templars found out two things in their first meeting. 1. The way you showcase your devotion to the Emperor is by purging Xenos and banishing Chaos. 2. The Codex Astartes was a bunch of BS, and Robute Guilliman was wrong. And it goes against everything their Primarch Rogaldorn fought for. And because of this, the Black Templars almost immediately started fighting Xenos, bringing the fight to the enemies of the Imperium. And they got a little carried away, a little fanatical maybe. Already being the bad boys they are and staying away from other Space Marine legions changed them quite a bit, where they would adopt the beliefs of the people and the Imperial cult, saying that the Emperor of Mankind was a god. This is very different from what Space Marine legions believe and the actual truth, that the Emperor was just a juiced Chad that would fight Chaos. But this belief and zeal allowed them to fight even harder. They are seen as weirdos by other Space Marine chapters though. The Black Templars are mostly seen as being parts of larger wars, or assisting the Inquisition in their crusades. You can even see them in the first Space Marine game doing this. Cannot wait for the sequel. The Black Templars still try to closely follow the Emperor's vision for the Great Crusade, where they reunite fractured humanity in the thousands of worlds of the Imperium, which has caused them to go through many different crusades and battles, including Abaddon's first Black Crusade, the War of the Beast, and many more, including the Third War of Armageddon, the Fall of Cadia, and even the resurrection of Robute Guilliman. Oh, look at that. That's right, they don't hold the 1,000-year grudges, unless it's against Chaos or Xenos. Due to the Black Templars fighting so much, they never really found time to sit or settle down. Being the Bastards of the Galaxy, they instead use their fleets and fortress monasteries as staging grounds. Each crusade is often overseen by a few marshals, with the High Marshal or Chapter Master going around in their battle barge helping everybody else out. The Black Templars have been very instrumental in keeping many planets under Imperium control for that very reason. But what is a crusade? It's a large-scale military push that's used to fight in many wars, and to keep control of or conquer planets. For the Black Templars, there are usually no less than 3 crusades happening at the same time. This usually happens because the Black Templars are constantly ping-ponging around the galaxy. Because of them being non-Codex Astartes compliant, they're usually about 5 to 6 times larger than a normal Space Marine chapter. That size is a bit debated in the lore though, but 5 to 6 seems to be the golden number. Them being non-compliant to the Codex Astartes was probably the best thing they ever did, because of all the manpower they have. They got away with it through a legal loophole, by the way. This is where in the Codex Astartes it said a chapter could be more than 1,000 strong in members if that chapter was currently crusading. Since the Black Templars do nothing but crusading, this worked out very well for them. This allows them to do the 40k equivalent of not paying their taxes and getting away with it. Man, they're so cool. I wish I was like them. And when the Indominus Crusade started making its way around the galaxy, Roboute Guilliman, the biggest blueberry who wrote the law book, subsequently didn't follow it when he got revived, came and talked to the current chapter master of the Black Templars, High Marshal Helbrecht. They did have a good talk and had a mutual respect for each other, even though Roboute did call his Primarch a traitor for what he's currently doing, but Guilliman couldn't say anything, because that'd make him a hypocrite. They both hopefully made up and fist bumped. Then Guilliman offered Helbrecht the gift of the Primaris Marines. Helbrecht took that offer with gusto, despite the transition being unimaginably painful, and had the possibility to kill him, but it didn't. Helbrecht's history is very cut and dry, but he has some amazing battlefield accomplishments. Helbrecht is probably the most Black Templar out of any Black Templar, with him wowing his brethren with his swift and exact zeal. He could use his hate like a sword against his enemy like no other. With him barreling through Xenos and Chaos Worshippers alike. With him single-handedly fighting an Orc war boss and their Wark Ore band and winning. Completely dispersing an Orc Wa. Helbrecht was given his big break when his predecessor was unceremoniously chopped in half by a Khornate Berserker. Helbrecht, being the coolest guy around, was given the Sword of the High Marshals in a unanimous vote. The Sword of the High Marshals is a power sword that was Sigismund's. Yeah, you remember him? They still hold on to his traditions. Wow, that's cool. And now it's Helbrecht's. He's also needed on the hive world of Murphy's Law that's named Armageddon. This is where he would have to fight the most well-known Orc war boss, Ghazghkull Mag Uruk Thraka. Ghazghkull took an L though, and he started leaving, like a mustache-twirling villain, laughing while he did. Helbrecht then talked to Ghazghull's life partner, and then they both decided to go chase him. Helbrecht also has a pretty cool banner. Zam! He looks fresh in that banner. Plus his miniature is just dripped out. Oh my goodness gracious, it's so good. Look at the orc he has under his boot. Great bits of visual storytelling. Just look at the servitors around him carrying his gun and polishing his sword. You instantly know that this guy's the boss, and it just has amazing detail. I like him with his helmet on though, the big old can is great looking. Chaplain Merrick Gamaldus guards the various relics of the Black Templars, and is one of the many veterans of the Third War of Armageddon. He's been on many crusades and was the youngest Black Templar to ascend to the rank of Sword Brother. He was like 200 when that happened though. Gamaldus, unlike most champions, prefers to lead through example instead of words. With him being given the title the Hero of Hell's Reach, where a green tide of orcs tried to destroy a holy chapel that has been there since Armageddon was first founded. Against insurmountable odds, and by helping some Marines that had been wronged by the Inquisition, he saved the church and most of the people inside of it. Plus, him helping out those Space Marines that were hurt by the Inquisition made him question his faith. Who doesn't love a character who's deeply conflicted but still does what they do because they think it's right? Chef's kiss. They also have some very interesting traditions compared to other Space Marine chapters. They above all else hate the mutant, heretic, and the witch, due to their hate for chaos and heretical Space Marines. The Black Templars are so dedicated to protecting mankind that sometimes they go a bit overboard, especially when they detect heresy and cleanse the whole planet's population, so no heretic gets out, but it is overkill. They hate Psychers so much they don't even allow librarians into their ranks. No one in the Black Templars with any type of warp capabilities is allowed, which is a bit heretical because the Emperor of Mankind himself was a potent Psyker, who's been able to do very godlike things even in his undeath. The chapter also uses a good bit of chains, with a tradition that originally came from the heretical World Eaters, but don't tell them that. They employ the use of chains to make sure they don't accidentally ever drop their weapons. Sigismund found the tactic to be pretty freaking rad when he cleared out Angron's flagship, called the Conqueror. His giant black chains made even the World Eaters blush. Sometimes these chains are taken off immediately after combat, but sometimes they're supposed to stay on permanently, which would be nice for me because if I ever didn't want to reload my bolter, I would just fling the chain around like a flail, hitting people with the bolter. Taking off this chain is seen as a great dishonor by the Black Templars, and is made customarily to be worn until the Space Marine is given the Emperor's peace. The Black Templars on tabletop are a very powerful melee army that uses chaplains and named characters that are very powerful. There are no Psychers in the Black Templars armies, so if you play them, you lose the entirety of the Psychic phase, as well as some of their range capabilities. But they do have some wacky relics to help them out, and have really good saving throws against mortal wounds. Helberg, for example, has a good point value, but has a large radius of effect where he buffs units around him. Grimaldus has some great anti-psyker abilities, as well as using his servitors and litanies to buff units. The Emperor's Champion, by comparison, can't do a lot, but is really good at going in and huffing Emperor-scented glue while doing so, excelling at melee combat. That's the Black Templars for you, my fellows. What do you think about the Black Templars? Did I miss something, or do you have a topic you want me to cover in a later video? Make sure to tell me in the comments down below. I love these guys, and they're probably one of my favorite Space Marine chapters right next to the Blood Angels, but they are probably the most morally bad out of all of them. I love how big they are compared to other Space Marine chapters and how active they are around the galaxy. Plus, their night theming is generally really cool, even if it is fairly overused. Till next video, fellas.